Gone by Michael Grant is a young adult fantasy novel that was recommended to me because I was searching for books with people with superpowers. The concept of Gone is essentially Lord of the Flies with superpowers. Essentially, the main character is Sam. He's sitting in his classroom at school when the teacher blinks out. The teacher just is gone. And the students are kind of like, wondering what's going on. The student-teacher guy just disappeared, and then all of a sudden kids start screaming and crying in the other rooms because all of the adults are gone. They're just simply gone. And actually not just adults, older people, anyone over the age of 15 has disappeared. And this event is called the Phase, stands for Fallout Alley Youth Zone. So Sam is trying to find out what's going on. He's just an average preteen. So him and his best friend Quinn and his crush Astrid, they decide to run over to their houses to find out if their parents are still home. So Gone, I didn't know anything about this book going into it. It sounded interesting. I like the concept. The opening's pretty good. However, one fatal flaw, I'm not a fan of the supernatural elements that are introduced into the book. The main concept is that some of the kids start developing powers, and then there are other kids that want to take power for themselves, and that's probably the most interesting aspect of the book. A sort of, who has the power, who has the authority sort of dystopian storyline was the most interesting. There's some antagonists thrown in there, some bullies as well. However, they also tried to introduce like this darkness character. It's like this creepy thing in a cave that's supernatural, that takes control of some wildlife. And there's also this other creature that they introduced at the end. And I just felt like it was really cheesy. It just didn't really fit. Also, I noticed that they tried to go for like a nickname thing for the bullies. The bullies all decide to have nicknames for themselves, but it gets really confusing because like the big guy's called Orc because he's big, but then there's a guy named Cookie, but because he's big as well, and then there's a guy named Mallet, there's a guy named Bug. They're just weird nicknames that like just didn't seem realistic, like these kids would want to be called that, regardless of if their families are around. Also, the characters are a little bit one-dimensional. Like the love interest Astrid, she's a smart girl who has a big vocabulary, not much else. And the biggest flaw, I guess, with Gone is that I didn't know this going in, but after I read the book, I found out that there's many books in the series. The 9th book will be released this year, but they've already released 8 of them. I didn't know this. But when reading this book, it's a good 550 pages, but then nothing really happens. Nothing of consequence happens, which really made me angry because it felt like they were building up. Each chapter title has a sort of countdown to a special event. However, nothing really happens in the finale. It's the equivalent of watching an action movie and everyone's trapped in like a restaurant diner. Everyone's got like guns and they're all, pointing and they're all shooting at each other and no one gets hurt. And everyone just walks away at the end. That's what it feels like. This book is pulling its punches, I feel, because it's trying to like set up the next book. So nothing really happens in this book. But anyways, that's the biggest problem with the book is that nothing much happens, which is kind of annoying because you can't introduce all these characters and then have them, go through arcs and then just kind of fizzle out at the end, just so you can save it for the next book. I think the reason why is because the event that happens, this large dome appears over this small town of San Bernardino, is that you can't introduce new characters really because you can only work with the characters you have. So if you kill off too many characters, then you can't introduce new ones, which is, I guess, a big flaw in the creative process. But other than that, though, Gone, it was a quick read. The pacing wasn't bad. I felt like a little too one-dimensional characters. They could have used a little more depth, and nothing really happens, and it just kind of feels like bait for the next book. So I'm not going to read the rest of the books simply because I just don't want to. So that's what I felt about Gone by Michael Grant.